to live, life to see, and life to give. Yeah. So this is going to be kind of more of like an update of some things going on, things thinking about. And in our book group, we just finished. Hey, Brenda, thanks for hanging around all this time. In our book group, we just finished You're Crazy If You Don't Talk to Yourself. You're crazy if you don't talk to yourself? Well, crazy people talk to themselves. Actually, when we read records about David in the Old Testament and the Psalms, he spoke to himself. He declared over himself what God declared. Even fighting Goliath, we find that he was declaring God's victory over the enemy. So that was a great book our book group did, and we're going to do a new book, which I want to tell about in a moment. You know, my heart is, our hearts are in a lot of things, but my heart right now is healing for people. Not all ministers have all ministries, right? Except for Jesus Christ, I don't know anybody that has they say the fivefold ministry, all fivefold ministries working. And if you'll look at ministers, some of the great ministers today, when they stay in their calling, the area of their ministry they're working, you see many mighty things. And that's why I do think it's good to be exposed more than one teacher or preacher. Obviously, much more than I am, in a sense of if you're just exposed to me, you're getting what God's working in me. But unless I hear what God is doing in you, I miss out. Do you see what I'm saying? In that, there's so much time and so much feasibility. An artist, if you were to go about and teach rocket science, would probably do a pretty poor job of it. Right? Would you go to an artist to find out about rocket science, space age technology? No, you'd go to someone who probably is better in that field. We've said something like this, and this has to do with healing and so many things, since I'm considering healing, and then I want to get back to this book thing, is that many people are willing to look at the menu. It's like going into a restaurant. Look at the menu, but never taste all that's on there. And yet when we have the calling of God to say, oh, taste and see the goodness of God, really, oh, taste and see his good, then we're being invited, an open invitation to come in deeper, to experience more, so we have more to give. I would rather spend time with someone who has experienced God than someone who has merely read the book. Does that connect? The book's important. The book's valuable. But the one who has stepped into the depths, the heart of God, and seen his heart, what a change is brought. Good morning, Sandra. And of course, everyone. So that's what looking ahead's about. Just, it's going to be simple. I'm not doing any big thing today or little thing or whatever. Is that expose yourself to different ministries and see what maybe you've been missing that God has for you. I've said that I really enjoy the way Dan Moeller teaches. Most teachers get their plan laid out and here it is and they follow the plan. You take people like Dan Moeller and he's much more of, what is God speaking at the moment? Let me speak that. And it isn't shallow. It's pretty deep stuff sometimes, and good, really good. So we finished this book, You're Crazy If You Don't Talk to Yourself. I'm vitally concerned about healing for people. We're coming to a season where a lot of stuff is going on. So I'm going to post after this. If you've never heard the Betty Baxter story, because you've read the scriptures, you read a lot of the accounts, The woman with the issue of blood, right? The lepers healed, the blind healed, the dead raised. We've read about them. But Betty Baxter was someone that was alive till not that long ago that has an incredible testimony of Jesus Christ actually coming into her place and her getting healed. So I'm going to post that after this. I'm sure I've posted it in the last year or two. But I want to invite us, so here's the invitation, to step in to see more of God's healing. When, the world's claiming more COVID, ICUs full and all, well, maybe we just need to experience God more. And I'm vitally concerned about when we have promised that by his stripes we are healed, that he heals all our diseases from Psalm 103, that we start stepping into more of what he has and not what more the world has. Now, I want to talk a minute. I want to invite you, another invitation, into our next book group. These are free. You need the book. We do them on Zoom. We usually do them on Friday nights about 9 p. No later than 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Usually, sometimes 8. Our last one was at 9. For me in Central Time, it was 8 p.m. Central. We try to adjust it for people and all, but they're recorded so you can go back and listen to our considerations as we're growing. So this book that we're going to be doing, which I'm inviting you, if you'd like to know more, to reach out to me. You basically need the book. It's a Zoom group. We're probably going to do it on Friday nights, follow our pattern, is this. I want to read a little bit from the book in morning hours. So I'm reading from this book because I want to inspire you to think of something you may want to read on your own, you may want to join in the group. And the book is called Defining Moments, God Encounters with Ordinary People Who Change the World. So I'm going to read a little bit out of this book because I want to inspire you. I want to whet your appetite. And that's not W-E-T. We spell it W-H-E-T. Isn't that interesting? Whet your appetite. Build desire, expectation for more of what God has for you. We love to hear God has more. But you know what? That's nice, but we really want to experience more. So this is the power of testimonies in this book, early on in the book. Testimonies prophesy. They reveal the nature of God, which never changes. The true profound truths upon which this book are built, and this book is by Bill Johnson, by the way, because I know a lot of people like Bill Johnson. We've never done one of his before. The two profound truths here upon which the book is built are: God does not show partiality, from Acts 10:34, and also like early on Romans 3 or 4, somewhere in there. And 2, so God doesn't show partiality. He's not going to do more for anyone else than he would do for you, okay? And he won't do any less for you than he's done for anybody at any time. On first time, I don't know if I said that right. But the truth is, God will do no less for you than he's done for anybody else at any time, including his son, Jesus Christ. So God does not show partiality, and God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? Really, that's what it's about. These we qualify every person who looks to God, and as he puts here, every reader, for the seemingly impossible task of seeing the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of our God. Revelation 11:15. We look to a leader in the world to bring the change, but when we realize that only the Prince of Peace can bring the peace that's promised, we look for a kingdom that is yet to come. Now listen to this. Can we expect an outpouring of the Holy Spirit in our day that changes the atmosphere and the values of the whole body of Christ? Can we? Can we expect a move of God that brings transformational effect on entire cities and nations? It has happened before. History is now looking for a generation who will rise up and live in such a way that it will happen again. But this time through the accumulated effect of all past revivals and awakenings. We are not looking for a simple repeat of a past event or even an unusual season of divine favor. On the contrary, we are looking for the full expression of God's interventions throughout history to culminate in these days that are upon us. We are dependent on this happening to complete what he has assigned for us to accomplish, to disciple nations until the kingdoms of this world become the kingdoms of our God. Something Charles Spurgeon said. Listen to this. And then the comment he makes after, and again, and this is in our book that we're going to be doing in our group, Defining Moments. It's a once a week thing. It's free. Planning to, still looking to next year, early in the year, doing our prophetic school, our word of knowledge, word of wisdom school coming up. And that's a classroom, and so that's a little more involved. But anyways, on July 17th, 1859, that's a little while ago, isn't it? Charles Spurgeon brought forth a message entitled The Story of God's Mighty Acts. 150 years ago, he declared this truth that had the power to shape the culture of the church until there was a full restoration of God's historic interventions among mankind. Listen to his prophetic cry. Yeah, this is good. I know those of you that are in the book group already probably haven't got here and read this, so sneaking ahead a little. When people hear about what God used to do, one of the things they say is, "Oh, that was so very long ago. I thought it was God that did it. Has God changed? Is he not unmutable, the same yesterday, today, and forever? Does not that furnish an argument to prove that what God has done at one time, he can do another?" No, I think we push in a little further and say what he has done once is a prophecy of what he intends to do again. Whatever God has done is to be looked on as a precedent. Let us with earnestness seek that God would restore us to the faith of old men, that we may richly enjoy his grace in the days of old. Now listen to Bill's response on this. In 1859, through this great prophetic teacher, the chance was given to initiate a full recovery of all that had been lost. History tells us that the church did little with this truth, except perhaps to applaud another great sermon. We are now presented with a similar opportunity. So this is book. I'm trying to, again, whet your appetite to for something greater in your life. Now, I want to read something from the introduction. This is where, what do they do? Introduction. I'm introducing some of what's coming. And this is Bill's introduction. Defining Moments. This book, Defining Moments, God Encounters with Ordinary People Who Change the World. Defining Moments is about the unusual encounters that various individuals have had with God that changed absolutely everything about their life. Their thought life changed, as did their ministry gifts and their sense of what might be possible in their lifetime. Each person's worldview also experienced radical transformation, as he or she was positioned to see the big picture through God's eyes. But for most of them, perhaps the biggest paradigm shift came in relation to their idea of the nature of God and their ability to feel his heart for other people. Seeing these things more clearly always carries a summons with it. They said yes to the call of God, and as a result became people who shaped the course of world history. Here's the remarkable truth about each of these individuals. Not one of them was unusually gifted for such a task. They were normal people. Their gift was God himself. All of our heroes of faith were pretty normal people, but that changed when the touch of God upon their lives transformed everything. What about Peter on the boat the first time, and he launched out into the deep for a great catch, and he knew better there would be no catch because they had toiled all night, and yet it was such a great catch. What an encounter for Peter, who becomes the Apostle Peter. What an encounter for Saul to become Paul when Jesus Christ speaks to him, presents himself to him on the road to Emmaus. His whole direction of life went 180 degrees. So, this is, if you're interested, I'd get this book and read it, because it's not only past, but it has current people in it. Because we want to have encounters with God that our lives are so changed that we bring change to our world. I'm not building a theology of encounters. I'm building a reality of a relationship with God, that my life is so changed that wherever I go, I affect the reality of this world with the reality of heaven. That's what I'm thinking. I want to read you something. Listen to this. This is old King James, because that's the way they talked back in the old days. John Wesley said this in his commitment to God. This is chapter 2 in the book. He says, John Wesley, his statement, I put myself wholly into thy hands. Put me to what thou wilt. Rank me with whom thou wilt. Put me to doing. Put me to suffering. Let me be employed for thee, or laid aside for thee, exalted for thee, or trodden under foot for thee. Let me be full. Let me be empty. Let me have all things. Let me have nothing. I freely and heartily resign all to thy pleasure and disposal. Could we say that's our heart cry? If we look at what John Wesley accomplished and all, we could see his life was laid on the altar of Jesus Christ to be who God called him to be. He wasn't like anybody else. Just like you and I are unique, one of a kind. So don't try to be another ministry. Don't try to be another person. Be who God has called you to be. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me on, because Brenda, you're on Periscope. You have my connection on Messengers. I remember, reach out to me in Messenger is the best way, if you have my email or something and you'd like to be part of that. I do ask that if you continue with it, that you at least, if you're not making at least half the sessions, it's free, catch the recordings so you're caught up with what we're doing. Again, because it's recorded and there it is for free. So again, after this, when I post this, or it posts automatically, I'm going to post the Betty Baxter healing. If you haven't heard the Betty Baxter healing, I strongly recommend, and especially if you need healing, when you realize how far Jesus Christ went, God through Jesus Christ went to see this woman's healing 60 years ago, or it was longer than that, I imagine 70, 80 years ago, what God did, you start realizing what it'll do for you if you need healing. And so I declare with God an agreement, and that we are in agreement together, when two shall agree together, that your healing is nigh, it is here now, and it'll manifest in its fullness. We're not talking about partiality or a little. So God bless you. Let's see what God has in store, and if we're still here on the earth, Lord hasn't returned, we'll get together Wednesday, okay? So God bless you richly. You are his masterpiece, you are his treasure, and he is ministering and manifesting his heart to you today.